on Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you talking
but soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very
to...
soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are two levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that. But two levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about.
Operation Epic Fury, day 11. President Trump says it's almost over. Iran is defiant. Major market swings prove how desperately investors do want this all to end. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Dagan McDowell, along with my co-hosts Taylor Riggs, Brian Brimberg, Jerry Willis, and with us for this hour, Fox Business senior correspondent Charlie Gasparino. We have more green today after a whipsaw Monday that saw sharp reversals in stocks and in oil and energy markets. The president, speaking from Florida, painting a picture of near total military success. Iran's Air Force is gone, its Navy on the sea floor, missile capability ravaged. But Iran is defiant and has ruled out ceasefire talks. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth saying today that strikes on Tehran will continue to amplify. And we are all watching the Strait of Hormuz. A credible first tanker convoy could do more to calm markets than any press conference. Charlie, what are you watching with this? Because it's not about energy or oil supplies. It is about mobility of that oil. And about 5 million barrels per day is moving through a pipeline across Saudi Arabia, east to west to the from the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea. Hopefully the Houthis don't do anything in the Red Sea.
And they'll get eliminated once they try.
Right. And then there's another pipeline in the UAE moving about 1.5 million barrels. You throw in maybe some petroleum reserve releases, and you've got maybe another week before there's real trouble, certainly in prices.
I think prices are going to come down in a week. You know, I tweeted out on Sunday, and I took some guff from Nate Silver. By the way, when was the last time Nate Silver called an election? I can't remember. But anyway.
I don't know, Charlie.
You don't know. So that's a tell.
Oh, wow.
I basically said this. What people are not understanding is how commodities traders overreact to the downside, and they always do. The same with stock traders. They also often overreact to the upside. And I saw that during the financial crisis, where there was a glimmer of hope each time, and people would buy the market, not knowing that there was a real existential problem with bank balance sheets. And I knew it. And some people did know it. They're doing it here too. And here's why. What you're seeing is lots of headlines spurred by left-wing media types, or I should say left-wing, the mainstream media, much of it, who are actively rooting against President Trump and his efforts. And they're trying to manipulate this story. They're believing the manipulation of this story by posting every single negative headline they can about this and how it will impact oil. And they're missing the bigger picture. The bigger picture long-term is this. Iran is wiped out basically militarily. I mean, they got some stuff left. We rely less on that oil, and we did take out Maduro, so the Venezuelan oil will be flowing. We do have military superiority in the area, and it's just a matter of time before this thing evens out, and basically we get ships through there, and then everybody will breathe a sigh of relief. By the way, do we really need that much of that oil? I mean, we got oil coming from Venezuela. We drill it here. This is a fear-monger's game, and I think the American people should know when they look at that oil screen that it's being fear-mongered higher. Now, here's the interesting thing. Trump knows that, and that's why he stuck it right to them, and I knew he was going to do it Monday. When I saw the price of oil go above 101, I think it was $100 a barrel, I knew it was coming down. How? All he has to do is say one thing. We're not going to be there forever. And by the way, we destroyed everybody. And guess what? It went down to 85. It's down again today. So I think this situation gets better going forward. I think the U.S. military will reassert control. I think Trump will look for an off-ramp, like maybe Khomeini's, did I say his name right? Khamenei, his impotent son. proves he's really impotent in more ways than one.
Yeah.
And he cuts a deal. I mean, it's coming. I mean, they don't have much left. They can't finance terror. Yeah. By the way, where's the Houthis going to get all their money to screw with us? If it's not their oil, I mean.
You know, Taylor,
I just want to add one thing. When I said a week, it's a week to finish the job because 15 million barrels of oil does move through the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
And as I pointed out, it's about 6.5 million that's moving through pipelines. But that is not enough to offset what is not moving. And quite frankly, it does matter because, as you know, commodities and oil is priced on the global market.
Yeah, it is,
we don't, and by the way, wait, let me finish. We don't produce all the oil that we use in this country.
Who prices it?
It's the markets.
It's traders who overreact every time. By the way, did you know how this thing?
But you know who traders are?
Wait. They're algorithms, Dagan. Do you know how this thing moved?
Do you know who also buys futures? All the companies around the globe.
Do you know why this moved, Dagan?
Charlie, I'm running this segment. You can talk over me all you want, but I get the final word.
You asked me a question. I'm giving you my expert advice.
No, I said, you know who also buys oil futures? All the companies around the globe that use them to hedge their costs.
But do you know how the market shot above 101? Do you know how? Because
yes, I do.
Because you know what? Every major multi-strategy hedge fund owns this stuff. They had algorithms that said sell. All of them sold en masse, and they got crushed in the end.
Are you done, Dagan? Do you want me to jump in? You tell me.
You know what? It does matter what happens over there, and there's still oil off the market, and it impacts people here at home.
It should not be this. It should not be this hysterical
I'm going to jump
thing.
in. So there's some interesting things. One thing I like that you said is it's a matter of time. And I think the question we've been thinking of in the last week is how much time. I think the market is trying to understand, is it like a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple months?
A week and a half, based on my calculations.
So the duration, I think, is what the market is trying to understand. There are some really interesting notes coming out. We've talked about that danger zone. What's your price for oil? Is it 90? Is it 100? The latest one out today, 93 to 97 is sort of like the price, where if you get a VIX spike, that's where you could see a sustained long drawdown in the S&P or the markets. What's so fascinating to me is we do not have that. You don't have a VIX at 30, 35, 40. You have a VIX at 22 right now. That's like the long-term average. And so I'm wondering if yesterday, 23, a lot of that, I don't ever like to call bottoms, but I think the market's trying to digest with a calm VIX and nothing at oil above my new price today of 93 to 97. You may not get that big sustained drawdown in the equity markets because you're trying to find a floor, right? Yeah. You're trying to sort of understand. I don't know what Trump's going to do with the war, but I'm trying to read the market signals about sort of how the equity market's trying to respond to this, Brian.
You know, normally when Charlie's on in the first block, I like to find something to disagree with you about, and we usually fight a little bit.
And you're always wrong.
I'm usually right, actually. Now we're going to find some disagree.
All right,
but
we can talk about rare
Charlie, I just want to say, I think you nailed it. And the part of it that resonated with me and you reminded me of is reading the headline coverage of this thing, okay? Because I think Trump's critics and the left and the mainstream media really tipped their hand on this one. Unrelentingly negative headlines. All the time,
They're
right?
all negative.
This is about to go bad. Trump's about to do this. Here comes Taco again. I even know that's one of your favorites is Taco. But that's what they're talking about.
I saw a
here.
Taco headline this morning.
Taco headlines.
I
love Taco Tuesday. But look, here's what I want to say. I think you're right about this. There's a lot of work to do. Dagan brought up this pipeline that across Saudi Arabia that's kind of a pressure reliever right now, and are the Houthis going to strike it? That's a big deal. But it could go away if something happens. These are all big X factors. But all these people going after Trump about how he's prosecuting this conflict, all these people going after Hegseth about how he's doing it, they are basically rooting for American failure here because they know success changes the world, and they don't want to give this administration credit for geopolitically changing the world in America's favor in the biggest way that we've seen in a generation.
And by the way, don't bury the lead. They are joining Iraq in moving the oil markets up by doing this. They think that's the one way they can get Trump to back off. It's so clear. And you could see it on social media. I mean, I'm reading this all day. I mean, equity traders, this guy, that guy, when you look at their profile, you see what they really think politically. They are literally trying to game the market on this to push Trump's hand. I mean, it's obvious.
Quickly, because I know we're running out of time.
You talk.
We got plenty of time for you,
You
Jerry.
say what you need.
Go for
You say
it.
what you need. Say what you want.
Is that the John
There's
Mayer
some irony
song?
here, I think, because what's going on is we have like 55 Chinese ships, tankers, waiting to go through the Strait of Hormuz. And who is helping them? The US of A. We're there. We're trying to make a difference, and we're helping China. I just think that's interesting. But to both of your all's points, what is going on here is every day it makes it more difficult for Iran to close down the Strait of Hormuz significantly, completely shut it off, because they have less and less capability to do anything at all. So I think the story is only getting better from here, but I tend to be a glass half full girl.
Where do you think oil goes if we're successful?
If
Down.
we're successful, down.
I mean, where?
Where were we at the beginning of the year? 55, 60?
40?
40?
You think it's going to go down 40?
If this is successful,
I hope you're right, but
It's 40.
That's pretty low.
And so if it's 40, we've got a national average today,
By the way, that might not be so good for
$3.54.
energy
What
stocks.
does that imply? What would that
Exxon.
imply?
Below $3 a gallon, easily, right at the
Well, I
pack.
can tell.
A month
could be
ago,
pissed.
292. Good stuff. Lower gas prices. I like it.
Well, I will end with this. When oil was, 113 on Sunday, I said what Charlie said, that given the amount of oil that is still moving out of the region, there's no reason that oil should be at these prices. That oil on the sea is being moved off of ships, Russian ships, into Indian refineries. This doesn't make sense. It is speculation. However, there is still a great need. Not including a reserve release, we need 10 million barrels of oil a day, and there will be a price adjustment. That's what happens, is that you need demand destruction to offset whatever amount isn't on the global market.
suppose you release the petroleum reserve. There's steps you could take to mitigate.
Yes, there's
And it
3
will
to
take
400 million barrels that the G7 energy ministers are talking
By the
about
way,
releasing.
remember,
That's about a month's
We had
supply.
a $100 barrel of oil when Biden was president, 2022, during the Russian Ukraine. I don't remember seeing all this insanity on Twitter.
Well, not from the guys who are bringing it today.
just don't
Very different set of
remember.
guys, yeah.
Well, I get called all sorts of names on Twitter, and I don't care. I can just look at, again,
No, but I'm not saying that.
supply versus consumption.
just saying
That's
that-
all you need to know.
We lived with the $100 barrel oil, and by the way, the reason why gas is at $8 sometimes in California is because of taxes, not $100 barrel oil.
Well, and no refinery.
And no refinery.
No refineries.
And
And
ESG.
no production.
Sure, all the
ESG
time.
and everything else.
Amazon.
Such a good one. You want to sort of gauge health of the market. If the credit markets are open, if the equity markets are open, Amazon, they want to issue about $37 to $42 billion in debt. We're going to do dollars and euros. The first tranche is U.S. high-grade bonds. That's about 11 tranches ranging from 2 years all the way up to 50 years if you want a half a century bond there. About 25 to 30 billion of that will be in U.S. dollars, and then they'll go overseas for the remaining $10 billion. But this is one of, if not the, depending on how this turns out, largest corporate debt issuances ever. And you know why? Well, they want to fund some of those hyperscalers that are advancing all that, the data centers, right? So this is going to be very interesting to watch. When Alphabet's done this, Dagan, there's been massive oversubscription for the debt. So I want to see, again, is there appetite for this debt? To me, that's a sign of health in the markets, that lenders are willing to sort of show up for companies such as these. Buyers, I should say.
Who's
Yeah.
buying the 50-year bond? Who's doing that?
Pension funds, sovereign wealth funds.
That's a long time to wait for your money.
Clip those
Well, there
coupons in
are
the meantime,
liabilities you
Jerry.
can match with that. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember the U.S. was toying with doing a 50
Yep.
and even 100.
Oh, yeah.
And
Century
it was
bonds.
just there was some like talk about how insurance companies could match some liabilities with that, but who knows? And they wouldn't sell it unless they had appetite for it.
Curious how much they have to pay
Right
to
now,
raise it.
only 150 basis points over treasuries.
Somebody's going to lose because of that. Oracle would be my guess.
They come out with earnings tonight.
Yeah.
Desperate to see how they do.
And using some conduits that are PU. Coming up, she's a 6-time New York Times best-selling author, a 4-time Emmy winner, and not to mention one of America's most beloved TV personalities. Kathy Lee Gifford is joining us live right here on set. She's talking about America's religious revival, the powerful message behind her new book. You don't want to miss it. Stick here with Big Money.